Good day everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Mr. Peters Richardson. I am an economics tutor. Today we are considering an important topic, and that has to do with the relationship between the law of diminishing marginal utility and the normal demand curve. In my previous videos, I have discussed extensively on demand curve. I will encourage you to watch what I've discussed on that regard in my YouTube channel. Today, we want to consider this very important topic, but before we go in details into this topic, there are still some things we need to know first of all, before we can be able to understand the relationship between the law of diminishing marginal utility and the normal demand curve. First of all, we want to know and then define utility and the marginal utility. We are going to state the law of diminishing marginal utility, and then we are going to explain the relationship between the demand curve and the marginal utility curve. So to start with, let's know what is utility. The term utility is simply the satisfaction that a consumer derived from the consumption of a particular good or a service. And according to the Marshallians, the cardinalists, they believe that utility can be measured. And that's why I see example here: 5 utils, 12 utils, 45 utils. That is, they believe that the same way you can measure weight, you can measure length in terms of meter or centimeter, they also believe that the satisfaction you derive from the consumption of a particular goods or a service can be measured. That's according to the cardinalists or the Marshallians, and that is why you have that measurement there in utils as a measure of utility. So you can see the woman there in that image eating that burger. The satisfaction she's deriving from eating the burger is known as utility. So when you are inside the vehicle and you are driving and you enjoy yourself, that is what we known as utility, satisfaction. Or you want to entertain yourself with a movie and you are enjoying it, that is called utility or satisfaction. So having known what utility is, then let's know what is marginal utility. Now, the term marginal utility simply means the change in total utility a consumer derives from consuming an extra unit. That is, when you consume an extra unit of a particular commodity, what extra satisfaction do you derive? That is what's known as marginal utility. And it is usually calculated using this formula. The MU here stands for marginal utility. It means the total utility 2 minus total utility 1 all over the second quantity all over the first quantity. So this is the formula we use to calculating the marginal utility. So this one is for marginal utility 1. Then if you want to go to the next, the marginal utility 2, before you go to the next, you also continue subsequently be using the formula. So as you can see in the table here, now you see here these are different quantities given to us from Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, Q5 and Q6, and there is total utility at the same time. At Q1 the total utility derived was 15 util, at Q2 40 util, at Q3 60 util, at Q4 75 util, at Q5 85 util, and at Q6 is 90 util. So for the marginal utility, to calculate the marginal utility, you need this information of both the quantity and the total utility to calculate the marginal utility. So obviously the first marginal utility, we put a dash there, but to calculate the second marginal utility using this formula, that means for the second marginal utility it will be the T2, which is 40 minus 15 all over 2 minus 1. So if you do that, 40 minus 15, it will give you 25, and 2 minus 1 is 1. Of course, 25 divided by 1 will give you this 25. So that's how you get that marginal utility to be 25 there. So you do the same thing. If you want to calculate for this marginal utility level 3, it will be 60 here minus 40 all over 3 minus 2. Of course, 60 minus 40 will give us 20, and 20 divided by 1 which is 3 minus 2, it gives us 20. So subsequently, this is how you are going to get each of these marginal utilities. So that's what we are looking at here, that is the extra. So as what you observe is that by the time you consume the quantity 2, what extra unit of utility do you derive? 25. By the time you increase it to the third level, the 3 quantity, you derive extra 20 utils. By the time you increase the consumption to 4, we have 15 utils as extra. Then by the time you consume 5, you have 10 utils. And then by the time you consume 6, you have 5 utils. But do you observe something? Is that the marginal utility keep decreasing. Are you seeing it? From 25 to 20 to 15 to 10 and to 5. It keep decreasing as the number of commodity consumed or the number of quantity consumed increases. And that was leads to the next concept we are looking at, and that is a law of diminishing marginal utility. The word diminishing simply means when something reduces over time, and that's what we see in this diagram here, or in this table here, that the marginal utility keep on decreasing as the number of quantity consumed increases. Can you relate to this? Well, we're going to discuss further about that. However, the law of diminishing marginal utility states that all things being equal, as consumption of a good increases, the marginal utility or the satisfaction derived, the extra satisfaction derived from the consumption of that commodity will keep on decreasing. And that's what the table is showing here. As you can see, as quantity consumed increases from 1 to 6, we observe that the marginal utility being derived decreases from 25 to 5. It decreases from 25 to 5. That is what the law of diminishing marginal utility is talking about. That is, the more you consume of a commodity, the less the satisfaction you derive from that commodity. And we're still going to look at the relationship about this when we draw the normal demand curve and the marginal utility from this table in our next as we consider this topic. Now let's look at this image that actually helps us to understand this principle of the law of diminishing marginal utility, that it is something you can relate to it even on the daily basis. Now let's look at this. Look at this man here that is taking burger. When he takes the first burger, you can see that the utility or the satisfaction he derived rises very high. Are you seeing it? Good. But what happened by the time you take the second round? You can see that the satisfaction he derived is at this low. Have you seen it? Good. Now what happened when you take the third one? You observe that the satisfaction he derived is just this low. Have you also observed that when you are very starving, you are hungry, you want to eat, and you are craving for food, and you start with the first plate. Now, when you take the first plate, you eat it with enthusiasm. Oh, you eat it. But after the second plate, how do you feel? After the third one, how do you feel? You observe that the satisfaction you are deriving will keep on diminishing. Even after some times, you will be unable to continue eating the food. So that is what is known as the diminishing marginal utility. And that's what the law is saying, that the higher your commodity you consume, the lesser the satisfaction or the extra satisfaction, the marginal utility you derive from it. And as the table here also, the picture also discusses as well. You also see the man here. The very first slice, very high utility. Second slice, high utility. The third slice of that burger, of that pizza rather, to just low utility. And the sixth one, negative, he could not continue to hit it any longer. That is what we call the law of diminishing marginal utility. And you're going to see this second, another picture here too. You also see this man. At the first bottle, he was so excited. What happened at the second, after he takes more of the bottle, he couldn't continue any longer. That is the law of diminishing marginal utility. I believe we can all relate to that now. Now, let's look at the table we discussed before to draw the normal demand curve and the marginal utility curve. Now, for you to draw your normal demand curve, you need two things, as we have discussed earlier. in my previous video, you need the price and the quantity consumed. And we all know there is a negative price, there is a negative relationship between the price of a commodity and the quantity you purchase or you demand for as a rational consumer over a given period of time. And that is why the demand curve will always slope downward. As you can see it like this, it will slope downward from left to right. It will slope down from left to right. That is, the higher the price, the lower the quantity demanded. And that is why when the price is 30, demand for just one. As you can see it here. When the price is 25, you demand for 2. When the price decreases to 20, you demand for 3 quantities. When the price decreases further to 15, you demand for 4 quantities. When the demand decreases to 10, you demand for 5. And finally, when the price decreases to 5, demand for 6 quantities. So it shows you the negative relationship between the demand, quantity demanded, and the price. Now let's look at what about the marginal utility? You need 2 things as well to draw your marginal utility curve. The 2 things you need are the quantity consumed and the marginal utility. So we brought this from the table that we showed earlier. So as you can see it here, your marginal utility will be on the y-axis, that is on the vertical axis, whereby your quantity demanded will be on the horizontal axis. And if you look at it here, at 25 utils, of course, 2 quantities, and then at 20 utils, we have 3 quantities, then 4 quantity give us 15 utils, so you have it there. Then 10 quantity gives us 5 utils, and lastly 5 quantities give us 5 utils give us 6 quantity. At 6 quantity you derive 5 utils. So by the time you join the coordinates together and you use a straight line to join them, you have your marginal utility curve. So this straight line that slopes downward from left to right, it is known as marginal utility curve. So that is how it is. Now the question now is that from what we have looked at so far, what is now the relationship between the marginal utility curve and the normal demand curve? What relationship exists between these 2 curves? Now if you observe very well in the next slide, these 2 curves that we have done, we brought them side by side to each other. First of all, what do you observe about the 2 curves? You can observe that the 2 curves we have here, they both slope downward from left to right. Have you seen the normal demand curve? Good. Look at the marginal utility curve likewise. What do you observe about the curve? The curve also slope downward from left to right. Can you see the relationship? They have similar relationship. Then what do you also observe is that at 25 util, the consumer was willing to pay $25. At 20 utils, the consumer is willing to pay $20. At 15 utils, the consumer is willing to pay $15. At 10 utils, the consumer is willing to pay $10. And at 5 utils, which is from here, the consumer is willing to pay $5. What do you observe? Is that the consumer is willing to pay according to this extra satisfaction is deriving. So if the extra satisfaction is deriving is falling, likewise, you will also pay for less. So that shows that the relationship between the marginal utility curve and the normal demand curve is a positive relationship. As a matter of fact, it will get to a point, as we have discussed here, is that the marginal utility curve will be equal to the price the consumer is willing to pay. We call this condition consumer maximization. This will be further discussed when we discuss the topic known as theory of consumer consumption. We are going to look at it carefully from what you have seen, that the consumer is willing to pay for the price according to the utility he is deriving. It is known as consumer maximization. So there is a positive relationship that exists between the normal demand curve and the marginal utility curve. So that is actually the positive relationship, and that's what we want to look at under the concept, the relationship between the demand curve and the marginal utility curve. Before we can be able to discuss it, we've seen what we have looked at today. We have known what utility is. We have known what marginal utility is. And we have learned how to draw both the normal demand curve and the marginal utility curve. And of course, we have looked at the relationship. Watch the video once again. Tend to know more about this so that you'll be able to understand this concept and you see how it affects you on your day-to-day activity as a rational consumer in whatever you do, whatever goods you consume, or whatever service you consume. Stay tuned to my YouTube channel as I will release further video in economics that will help us to understand the concept of economics and how it affects all of us as humans, as rational consumers on daily basis in whatever it is that we consume as consumer. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, like and comment. Let me know how well I'm doing and how I can improve, and which area of economics you would have loved me to discuss further. I will be willing to do that. Thank you very much. Once again, my name is Peters Richardson. Enjoy your day.